Hello, folks, everybody. I hope everybody is having a fantastic day. As you can see from the background, the topic of this video today is going to be on Agenda 2030. And I want to basically try to explain and try to talk about more like kind of conversational manner uh, what it is, what actually they say it is, the way they try to package us, and what actually a lot of people, including myself, think it actually is. So yes, let's let's start talking about Agenda 2030. First off, Agenda 2030 has 17 goals, 17 steps, and they are all grouped under the name Sustainable Development Goals for the globe. So it's a globalist plan. And I want to first off, read to you briefly what those 17 sustainable goals are. Number one is no poverty. Number two, zero hunger. Number three, good health and well being. Number four, quality education. Number five, gender equality. Six, clean water and sanitation. Number seven, affordable and clean energy. Eight, decent work and economic growth. Nine, industry innovation and infrastructure. 10, reduce inequalities. 11, sustainable cities and communities. Number 12 is responsible consumption and production. 13 is climate action. Number 14 is life below water. Number 15, life on land. 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And 17, partnerships for the goals. So yes, I just kind of read the list of sustainable development goals that they envision for the world, for the global community. And who would possibly say, these are not the goals that we should have, these are bad goals, we should not have equality, we should not reduce poverty, we should not, reduce conflicts and wars, we should not bring peace. Who would, what sane person can ever resist those ideals? So obviously, everybody wants a world like this. But is this utopia or is this reality? I wanna mention one from Ronald Reagan, one of the greatest presidents of the United States, that he said during his administration, early 80s, about 40 plus years ago, 44 years ago or so, he said that fascism will come to the United States with kind of covered with silky uh, dress, gloves, looking, having a beautiful, attractive face, and offering everything like Santa Claus offering toys to little kids. That's how fascism will come to America. And the way, if you look at today, what's going on, especially the last 4 years during the Biden administration, uh, the events that have been unfolding have been kind of witnessing what Ronald Reagan said about almost 40 years ago. Equality. Let's talk about that. Equality is the condition that they envision at poverty. But of course, they're not going to say that. All the other, 17 items, 17 ideals, and extremely lofty ideals that I just listed, I just read to you, are the absolute idealistic conditions that maybe the earth will never have. Yet, the globalist community appears to be poised to bring and establish a world, a globalist, truly globalist world that is promising to people, offering all those nice toys, just like Santa Claus is offering toys to the little children. So let's look at some of those items, and how is it that they're planning? How is it that they're kind of projecting themselves to be in a position to deliver those goals under the name Agenda 2030, which implies to me is only 5 years from now? First off, the mechanism that they envision to bring and establish so-called world with basically aligned with all those 17 sustainable goals is a world that is governed by one and only one government. So this is a one government world. That is what they are envisioning. Of course, they're not going to say that among those 17 so-called sustainable goals. But the mechanisms of those sustainable goals that they envision behind the scenes is nothing but one world government. And you can use the terms interchangeably here with the one world government as NWO, or New World Order. To be able to establish, enforce, and monitor the kind of world that they envision, they have to be in full charge. They have to be in full control as one world government with extremely absolute and strong and all-powerful and almighty globalist control. So basically what's happening here is, just like any dictatorship that history taught us, if we learn how to, if we understand history, if we pay attention to history, all the dictators came to power with similar kinds of promises. All the dictatorships promised to deliver lofty ideals, prosperity, peace, riches, you name it. And every single utopia that history taught us, and I hope we learned from history. A lot of times I'm disappointed that I'm thinking we have not learned yet. I hope someday we can learn that historically, without a single exception, I repeat, without a single exception, every single utopia turns into a horrible dystopia. What is dystopia? Dystopia is utter chaos, extreme chaos, and people are literally experiencing hell on earth. That's what dystopia is. If you try to impose and enforce these extremely lofty ideals, which is literally impossible to achieve those things, those who offer them, who promise to deliver them, must exercise amount of dictatorship kind of power that will eventually, and in not long period of time, a dictatorship and eventually dystopia and chaos and horrible living environment where people would even consider to kill themselves instead of living in that kind of environment. That's what utopia is, dystopia is. Every time, utopias are always ending up in dystopia. We saw many examples of this. If you pay attention to the history, if you study international relationships, if you study international politics, if you study geography combined with history, because geography is extremely important within the context of history, you see that utopia always ended up in dystopia. This is a huge, maybe the hugest so far they ever uttered and officially promised to deliver people. Those 17 impossible to achieve, Pollyanna plus beyond type of goals. Basically, they offer and they promise to deliver everything, everything under the sun and beyond. There is nothing left. No poverty, no hunger, peace, no wars, sustainable development. Everybody has everything. Prosperity, endless prosperity, all those things. So let's take a look at the reality. Once you kind of get people on the same bandwagon and kind of start leading them into the direction, that's all you need to do. Come up with something to attract those people to follow you, actually to their demise. What they're trying to, in reality, what they're trying to accomplish is to establish their global governance. The global governance under one world will be extremely strict. And yes, there will be sustainable equality. Because, like Carl Schwab says, the president of the WEF, World Economic Forum, he says that you will own nothing, but you will be happy. Because the Agenda 2030, one of the pillars of agenda, the concepts of Agenda 2030 is they're against private property. So it sounds like Marxist ideology. And in fact, practically that's what it is. What they're offering people is a Marxist, extremely Marxist communist ideology. That's what they're offering. And they're borrowing from the Marxist ideology in terms of equality and being against the private ownership, private property. But there's a tiny little difference if you pay attention. Those who are in charge, those who are trying to establish this kind of regime in the world globally, that's why we have to use this term globalist regime. Those in charge are currently in a position to have an access to all the resources that globe offers them, all the material resources, and from those resources they derive their power to be able to enforce these kinds of agendas. And once they have 100% amount of control over the people, they will get way richer than they are today, way more powerful, that they can even declare themselves gods. And there is nothing stopping them from doing so. So yes, they're talking about Marxist type of ideology in terms of equality and being against the private ownership and private property. That is for the people. That is for the huge masses that they want to manage and control and actually enslave, while extremely tiny little community on top of the pyramid, extremely tiny little community will have, I want to say, trillions of dollars of financial power that can be, I want to use this term, that will be controlled and manipulated by this elite force that would be measured in trillions of dollars in current terms. They will own everything under the soil and over the soil. They will own all the entire agricultural means of production. Anything that oceans offer, the seas offer, all the minerals, and all the people, and all the human resources, anything around the globe, any living being will be controlled by them and will be belong to them. And when they're trying to establish this one world empire, they're using those so-called 17 sustainable goals that appears, that sounds obviously, without, I mean, there is no need to say, it's obvious, it's absolutely given, wonderfully sounding goals. That's what Agenda 2030 is. And by the time they achieve their goals, if they achieve their goals, the achievement, the parameters of the achievement is such that even the oxygen people are using to breathe will be monitored and controlled by them. Technology is enabling them and giving them incredible amount of power that no other dictator, no other sultan, king, emperor, pharaoh in the history ever been able to even dream. Yet with the current technology today, they are in a position to envy all those historical figures, all those sultans and kings and emperors, in terms of controlling the amount of people, which is basically the entire global community, regardless of their nationalities. In fact, speaking of nationalities, I want to touch base this. That is why they don't want nationality. Now, let's kind of try to focus now. Narrow down the focus to explain these things better and try to explain what's happening or what has been happening today from this perspective. They don't want nationality, and they don't want the current national structures. They don't want people to feel any kind of nationality. They don't want people to be loyal to any kind of ethnic lines, ethnic lineages, history, nationality, none of those things. The global immigration that we've been facing today for the United States, the last 4 years, more than 10 million illegal immigrants was allowed, almost forced, to come to the United States. This was not an accident. This was not really some kind of a shortcoming of the Democratic establishment, the Biden administration, that they couldn't stop or they were not aware. They were basically the sold-out government. The Biden administration was sold-out, treasonous government to those globalists with these kinds of agendas, to be able to disrupt and destroy the very social fabric of American life by bringing millions upon millions upon millions illegal immigrants, many of whom never ever share and will never ever share the cultural shared values and norms. That basically leads, and history is full of these examples, even starting from even starting from the antiquity, even before, like Sumerians and Hittites in the Middle East, in Mesopotamia. When you bring people, enormous amount of people, introduced to society, and they cannot integrate, and they don't have shared values, and their cultures are so different that basically cannot allow them to share the common values, they actually bring the end of the society, the host society, that they accept them as guests, as immigrants. That is what they've been trying to achieve, to destroy the United States of America, to destroy the American social fabric. This is not only happening in America, by the way. This has been happening in Europe, and actually very similar examples can be seen in Turkey as well. Millions upon millions of people from around the countries, including Syria and North Africa and all the other Middle Eastern places, nations, basically flocked to Turkey. And also similar dynamics and patterns have been witnessed in Europe, all over the Europe. And Europe came to the level today, the Western Europe, Eastern Europe already closed their borders. And they have a zero tolerance policy, thanks God, zero tolerance policy against this kind of immigration. Now Western Europe and Scandinavian nations, those are like Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, they came to the point that we all know that how tolerant nations they were. They were the greatest examples of democratic nations. The prosperous society, democratic nation with lots of tolerance for different cultures. What we're witnessing today in Scandinavian nations, one by one, they're shutting down their borders against especially immigration from North Africa and Middle East, because people coming from those areas are absolutely not even trying to integrate to those societies and having kind of a common shared values. In fact, they're doing everything they can to bring disruption and even bring down the societies, the host societies that they're accepting them. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I had to quickly check something. That's why I took a little bit of a pause here. Yeah, so why do you think it's happening? Holland officially shutting down their borders. Germany is kind of along the same lines, especially, what's happening in Europe. That was what we saw this summer, the summer of 2024, the European politics, that the what they call extreme nationalists and racists, they use these concepts interchangeably. While this is also a game, the expressions and words they're using, don't forget that. How do you hear those news from the news, mainstream news media? The mainstream news media is 100% controlled by those globalists, and they're using these terms to establish, some kind of a public opinion, eventually in their service, supporting them. The terms they're using is nationalist, racist movement. It's nothing like that. There is nothing racist about that. People have a right to be nationalist. People have a right to like and love their nations and protect their own nation's values. And the level of immigration came to the point, the boiling point in Western Europe, that European people with common and shared values were asking, is this the country that we established, or do we have to tear down all the pillars of our cultural and political pillars of our nations just so we can be like them? In other words, the immigration from the third world countries are designed in the West to destroy the very social fabric and all the institutions of those nations, and political and cultural, scientific, educational, everything, and to eventually convert those nations into third world nations. Why, of course, one has to ask, why is it that globalists are trying to do such a horrible thing? Why is it that they have such an ugly goal? They do have this goal. They do have this goal. And Agenda 20, those 17 items under the Agenda 2030, however nice they sound, just like Santa Claus is giving toys to kids, little kids, behind every one of those 17 goals, the true agenda is that ugly, if not uglier. The good thing is, people are awakening. People globally are awakening. Just like the reaction that in Western Europe you're seeing, the nationalist movement. Just like in the United States. The reason why Trump got elected is very much so this, very similar to Western Europe. People are awakening and they are resisting. They are aware, they are fully aware, and this awareness is increasing every day. They don't want a globalist, Marxist, one government kind of organization telling them what to eat, when to sleep, what to wear, all those things. They don't want you to have a car. They don't want you to own a car. They don't want you to own a house. They don't want you to own a bank account. They don't want you to own a little field, farm, nothing, not even a bicycle. That's why World Economic Forum President Karl Schwab, when he says, you will own nothing, he's not even hiding this. He's saying this explicitly. People has to pay more attention. You will own nothing, but you will be happy, meaning you will really own nothing. You will be provided whatever you need to be able to sustain your miserable living, your slave-like living in the service of the globalist establishment, the globalist elite. It is that simple. People, the masses, the populations of the countries, the global masses are nothing, are to be reduced to nothing other than data sets for the globalist elite to control them through the current technology from computers. Nothing but to be reduced to statistics and data sets to be controlled completely and entirely. That's what Agenda 2030 is. That's what the globalist goals is. And that's what the Biden administration and liberal governments in the Western Europe have been trying to serve this goal. And that's why the nationalism has been going up and gaining traction because of the fact that the awareness of the people, the awareness of the masses have been going up. Just look at this. They're playing. You remember I said the terminologies are very important. Terminologies, the language, the linguistics impact a lot. The words they use, they choose. Remember I said the mainstream news media is 100% under their control. Like Trump says, the official mainstream media, every news is filtered and fabricated. In short, fake news. No news is really news. All the news are filtered and fabricated and doctored to be able to support the globalist ideals. Those ideals are the ones I just mentioned. You remember they were calling it global warming. You don't hear this anymore, right? They don't say it. They don't use this word, global warming, because the phrase global warming became so overused. It's basically now anymore sounding extremely negative. They realize that they're in the know. They know what's going on. They are monitoring very closely. They drop using this term and they replace it with the term climate change. Now, global warming has become climate change. If you say climate change, it's a lot more acceptable, it's a lot less threatening. Global warming is now kind of a very negative term. What about the gender issues? They are trying to eliminate gender differences. They're trying to establish complete humanity almost without gender. All the extremely, incredibly, amazing things that every one of us are saying, what is it? What kind of ridiculousness is this? We're going to hear and see way more ridiculous gender classifications than we are seeing today. The goal is they're being prepared, planned, and pushed into the societies, and they're trying to basically brainwash our children as young as when they're in the grade school. They are trying to, for instance, in Germany, they're trying to establish and they're trying to pass a law that if 6-year-old boy wants to have a sex change, his parents should not have a vote, should not have any kind of authority resisting that. If 6-year-old boy says, I want to have a sex change, he should be able to do that. That's what they're trying to pass as a law in Germany. So, this is the gender side of it. That's why if you pay attention, for instance, if you're watching, say, a movie on Netflix, 5 to 10 years ago, the things that you were not seeing, you're seeing today. The gay relationships are being normalized on almost any regular Netflix movie. We're not talking about any movie. The gay type of relationships are always there. More and more they're coming in more different variations. What they're trying to accomplish is they're trying to normalize in the eyes of the young people that this is normal, in fact, desired. In fact, even they're trying to push everybody to even experiment this in their lives, and there should be no restrictions. In fact, they're trying to they're trying to destroy completely the moral fabric of the society. The thousands of years, the societies established themselves along certain lines. The national identities, the ethnic identities and structures, the religious structures, the moral structures. They're trying to basically destroy all those things. What they're trying to achieve is to create a human being without any kind of moral compass and moral guidance, any kind of moral restraints to do whatever they think would please them, or just for the sake of trying. I repeat, there will be no restraint to prevent that. That includes incest, incestual relationships. That includes elimination of gender completely. That includes elimination of national allegiances and national feelings completely. Now, let's get to the gun control issue in the United States of America. They've been, for how long, we all know that they've been doing their best, try to prove or trying to kind of convince the people, the public, that gun ownership leads to higher rates of crime. Time and again and again. Basically, countless of independent studies. Those are academic, those are government institutions or academic institutions or combinations of them. Countless statistics and research papers have been published so far showing that the gun ownership, the legal gun ownership in the United States of America has absolutely no more than 0% correlation with crime. Crime that are committed with firearms is completely and entirely and utterly independent issue from people owning guns. In fact, again, there is countless of statistical research papers published supporting the fact that people or areas and zones or regions where more people have legally armed, the crime rate with firearms, they get a lot less than otherwise. It clearly indicates that legal gun ownership is not in any form or shape statistically related to crime committed with firearms. This is well known by everybody, including those globalists. But then why is it like New York City, for instance, or the state of Illinois, Chicago is a famous place for that. They're doing everything to prevent them, to prevent people, to prevent their residents to own and carry a gun, a firearm, legally on their person or in their home for self-protection. The agenda behind that again is nothing but Agenda 2030. You remember I told you, own nothing and be happy. Are you concerned about your safety? Do not worry. Government will protect you. Government will protect you. If you let the government protect you, provide you housing, provide you education, provide your food, everything is provided by the government freely, so-called free. The cost is nothing less than your complete freedom, because there is nothing free. If you lived long enough on this world, you gotta know, if you have sane thinking and mindset, you know that there is nothing free in this world. And if everything is offered by government free, that the actual true cost is your freedom. That means you're not free. That means you're a slave of that government. And people try to justify it. That they say, these are the basic human needs. Shelter, food, health, education. Those 4 things. And security. Five things. These are the basic needs of people. And people have a right to be secure, to eat, to have a shelter, to be educated. At least some minimal level of education. Yes. But under the tenets of this so-called guarantee, that's again going back to what Reagan said, the fascism will come with silky gloves. They offer these things freely. And they convince people that, well, they're entitled to those free goodies because they are the citizens of their nation. No, because they are to be enslaved, that they're not aware yet. And in fact, what they think they're going to have is nothing that what they imagine. Or what they think, or what will happen, is not even closely or remotely even aligned with what they're going to have. Equality, in a way, yes. In absolute and abject poverty, they will be equal. Absolutely. I repeat, they will be equal. There will be equality. And that equality will be set at the level of abject poverty. They just don't think about it yet. There is not a single communist regime succeeded in the history of the world. The communist regimes all around the world, look at Soviet Union, look at Venezuela experiences, look at other experiments. Basically, these utopia kind of ideologies, the sick ideologies, produce nothing but extreme misery and horrible chaos and death and torture and dictatorships, because they're not natural. They're not aligned with human nature. So that's what Agenda 2030 is. Coming with those lofty ideals, promising those lofty ideals to people, just like Santa Claus is promising and delivering those nice toys every Christmas to those little kids who deserve, right? The little boys and girls who've been nice all year. It's actually very similar. Why did Ronald Reagan use the term fascism? Because those guys are nothing but extreme fascists. They will be sitting on top of the pyramid. Very tiny little minute little group of elite people who controlling trillions of dollars and all the systems and technologies and all the weapon systems and all the networks and everything that they can control masses, just like you are sitting on your computer and you're controlling your files. The people, the masses will be reduced to nothing other than any more than data sets for them. This is what they're trying to accomplish. That's why Trump won election with a landslide, because people are awakening. That's why the right wing is on the rise in Western Europe. Rightfully so. People have to do everything to resist and eventually destroy these institutions like World Economic Forum, United Nations, World Health Organization, and the European Union. These are the institutions of the Agenda 2030. 24/7 non-stop producing ideas and coming up with plans and rolling out their plans. That's what Agenda 2030 is. So when I say, you might think this is an extreme exaggeration, but I find a suitable depiction. There will be time that with the current technology, once oxygen that he or she is using on a daily basis will be measured and controlled, and if they think necessary, will be shut down. The food completely will be entirely controlled by them. What's happening in the United States now? The individual small farmer communities are shrinking. Huge corporations like Cargill are controlling more and more and more agricultural resources. They will be in complete charge of food production and distribution, energy, water, food, everything. And people eventually will be in complete dependency on this system. That you, not figure of speech, but again I'm going to repeat myself, literally will be at their mercy to breathe oxygen. This is the absolute world governance. That's what they're after. Thank you very much for listening to me.